This video is going to focus on using a variety of different sketching tools, and we're going to use the sketching tools to create this part right here. So I'll start a new standard IPT in inches, create, start a 2D sketch, choose a plane, and I'm just going to use the line tool. And again, just focus on the shape. Don't worry about the dimensions right now. Let me show you one thing that may happen. I'm going to exaggerate this, but if you were to not close your shape, you have to have a closed shape to do an extrusion properly. If I finish this sketch and try to extrude it, you see what you get is this rather weird looking shape. Not sure what it is. It's not a solid object. Just going to undo that. Go back into my sketch. So you have to make sure it's a closed shape. You do have some tools similar to what we had in AutoCAD. These work a lot better though. For example, you have an extend tool, and all you have to do is click the extend tool and then click the line and it'll extend to where it intersects. The trim tool is equally good. With the trim tool, all you have to do is hold down your left mouse button and then swipe it across what you want to trim, and it'll trim it away. So super easy to use. Let me go back and connect. Now notice when I'm connecting these, I'm trying to get that green dot that will lock it on to the endpoints of the existing lines. When you're done, right click OK. So let's just put some dimensions on this. Now when you dimension, sometimes your object may jump around. It's okay. A couple of things you can do. You can just undo it. There's an undo tool up here. It's probably the easiest thing to do instead of trying to fight with the dimensions. Now you'll notice the shape will move around as I add dimensions. Now this dimension's on an angle. When I go to dimension it, it's going to try to put a linear dimension, but I don't want a linear. I want an aligned dimension. So if you click that line the second time, then it'll line it up with the angle. Let's see, this one here is also an aligned dimension, so I'll click that the second time, put in the dimension. The other dimensions here are angular, and the dimension tool is pretty smart. If you click on the two lines and then pull your cursor over, you'll see it'll give you a space to put your angle in. And likewise here, I want an angular dimension. That one's also 60 degrees. Now those are all the dimensions for the object. Now notice it's still purple because I don't have it constrained or dimensioned to the origin. And it's a good idea because it helps you understand if your drawing is fully dimensioned. If you notice down in the lower right hand corner, it tells me I still need 2 dimensions in order to have it fully constrained, and that would be just the dimensions to orient it back to there. Let's just go ahead and finish up the drawing. It has 2 holes in it. One is 1 inch diameter. So as you're drawing the circle, you can type in the dimension, hit enter, or you can come back and dimension it. Either way, it's pretty simple. So those are the sizes, but I need the locations as well. Now one thing you'll notice is the dimensions on the sketch don't show up on the drawing sheets. You can actually use poor dimensioning practices in terms of locations of the dimension. I'm just programmed to not do that, but as far as dimensioning on the part and so forth, it's okay. Part of the problem with doing that though is that it really clutters up the drawing, so it's really advantageous to use some decent dimensioning practices when you can. So everything's dimensioned except again, it's not purple because, I'm sorry, it's purple because I still haven't dimensioned it back to the origin, and that's easy enough to do. I can just use that corner and there and put a dimension on it, and this edge and that, put a dimension on it. I'm basically just, don't know what I just did. let's see, so it says one dimension is still needed. Which dimension is that? Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so even though those are duplicated dimensions, one is to the center of the circle, the other is to the back to the origin. Everything's black, so we know it's fully constrained. I can finish the sketch now when it's done. And let's go ahead and extrude it. In this case, this is 0.25. Now what happens if you decide you want to edit the sketch after you've already created your extrusion? So we'll go back to our part tree, and notice if you put the cursor over there as you run down the part tree, you'll see extrusion 1. I've only done one extrusion, so clearly it's that one. If you click on that plus sign over there, it'll open this up, and you can see there's your sketch under that extrusion, and that's how the part tree will record the work that you do. Is the sketches and extrusions will be together. If you right click, this menu will pop up and say edit sketch, and then you're back to your sketch. So if you decide you wanted to change a dimension, then that's easy enough to do. Double click on that, and let's say I decided that was going to be 50 degrees. Finish the sketch, it'll update. You see the part updates. Again, just part tree will look like that. If you click on the plus, go to where it says sketch, and you'll notice that that sketch highlights when you move your cursor over it. Right click, edit sketch, double click on the dimension you want to change it, hit enter, finish your sketch, it'll update. Let me show you some of the other tools that we have here. I'll just push this off to the side when you're sketching. Now in this case, I can either add material to this model, or I can take away. Let's say I'm going to add some material. I'm going to use the rectangle tool. So you have some different options as to how you use the rectangle tool. I'm just going to stick with the default method, which is going to ask you for 2 corners. Like let's say I wanted to add like a foot to the bottom of this. I'm going to click on that intersection. I'm going to click over here. I just want to get to the end of the part. I'm not going to worry about the height of it right now, because then I'll come and use my dimension tool to call out the height of that. And let's say that's 3/16. Let me finish the sketch. You can see what I've done there. So I've added that sketch onto that face. Let's go to extrude, click on that, and you can see what it's doing is creating a lip. And let's give that a little more distance. Let's call that 0.75. So now I've created that. Now notice what it does is it blends it right into the existing shape to add onto your body. I can also, if I want to take away material, I can do the same thing. Let's use that rectangle tool. Let's say I wanted to cut out a slot here. Now don't forget, you have to dimension not only the size of that feature, but also the location. Just to some reference point. It really doesn't matter what reference point. It's black, so it's fully constrained. I'll finish the sketch, extrude. In this case, I'm going to do a cut. So go down here to Boolean, say cut, and I want it to go all the way through the part, and say OK. And you'll see that I created a slot using that rectangle tool. Likewise with the circle tool, I can add material, or I can take away material. Let's make that 0.375, and again I have to, that's the size, but I also need location of that. Finish the sketch. In this case I'm going to add material, so I'm going to add that pin that sticks out. Say OK, and again that's attached to the body, becomes part of your solid object. Now as you look at your part tree, you'll see each of those extrusions. As I move down through the part tree, it'll highlight the extrusions that I've created as I built my part, and it's chronological. That's the first thing I did, second, and so forth. And anytime you want to edit any of those, if you want to edit the extrusion, just right click on extrusion and say edit the feature. And then I could change something on that. For example, if I decide this needs to be longer, that will change it. If I want to edit the sketch, click on the plus, right click on sketch and do edit sketch. And now I can change, if I decide that this should be 1.25 for example, and it'll automatically edit. Again, that's the parametric part of 3D modeling. You can let the dimensions change the features. You don't have to do it initially. You can do it after the fact. So as you're designing, if you change your mind, you can change the dimensions, change the features. In fact, if you don't like something totally, you can go in and totally delete that feature and it'll go away. It's not on the part tree anymore.